Visualization, the recreation of images, sounds, and environments before it has happened, is one of the most powerful skills in the world. A very powerful meditation and mindfulness practice, visualization has been used for centuries to help prepare the mind, the body, and the consciousness for upcoming challenges, situations, and circumstances. Some of the world's greatest athletes use visualization as a way to prepare for big games, the big day, musicians for their new concerts and tours, and CEOs for their very important meetings.
Need motivation?
Watch a Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jay Shetty, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, make an impact.
There's very few creators of content on social media that started out with a follower count in mind. So me included, a lot of my peers in this space, a lot of people that I know that are extremely successful on different platforms, none of them started, at least the ones that I know, none of them started to get followers. They all started because they had something to share, whatever that was, whether it was comedy, whether it was wisdom, whether it was a workout plan, a fitness plan, whatever it was, like they had something that they did that they were passionate about, they wanted to share. And I can only speak to myself fully, but when I started, I thought I was going to have a full-time corporate job and I was going to make videos on the evenings and weekends to share a message. That's genuinely all I believed. And after my first month, I had about 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, about 4 videos I'd made on YouTube. I had about 1,000 people that had subscribed to my channel. And most of my friends were like, great, Jay, that's where it's going to end. Like, congrats, well done. Like, you got 1,000 subscribers. You kind of just crept in there in 30 days. Like, well done, that's cool. Like, how far is this going to go? And that's really the reality of what it felt like. And the interesting thing is, the question was never, how do I get more followers? The question was always, how do I make more content that impacts people? Because, and that's the question with everything. It's like, if you make more content that genuinely impacts people, you'll get more followers. If you build a business that serves more people, you'll make more money. If you help a lot of people through your talents and gifts, you will be famous and known for it. Like, it's a byproduct of doing something properly. And that's why I love the definition that Peter Diamandis gives, that we should redefine the word billionaire to be someone who impacts the lives of 1 billion people. Why is Jeff Bezos the richest man in the world? Because he's created a product that we all say we want and that it solves a problem that we really need. And so if you want to get followers, don't look at the number. Ask yourself, are you really creating the value that's going to help people? And they're going to naturally want to follow you. And they're going to want to love your work and share it. Because to me, that's the worthwhile pursuit in life. Because when you do that work is humbling. When you do that creativity, that's the part that makes you grateful for the success that you get, because you go, wow, like people actually care about what I have to say. But if you're just obsessed about numbers and metrics without being obsessed by the content, the creation, and the service, then you'll never be satisfied, because there'll always be someone better than you. So for me, when I set out to write this book, so many people were like, oh, so do you want this book to be a bestseller? And I said, I want this book to be a bestseller. Of course I do. But I'm not going to focus on it being a bestseller. I'm going to focus on writing the best book in the world that I can possibly write, given the skills that I have. And that's why when I talk about Dharma in the book, which is helping everyone find their purpose, Dharma is broken down. Dharma means purpose loosely. And it has many different meanings, but one of them is nature and purpose, your true nature. And the 3 aspects that I'll share now and there's more depth in the book, the 3 aspects of Dharma are your passion, your skills, and your compassion. That's what it means. When you have your passion plus your skills plus your compassion, that equals purpose. But for most of us, if we're just looking at numbers and metrics and data, I mean, you'll be dissatisfied that. And I'm saying that as someone who really values numbers. I understand the value of followers, social media. I get the value of all those things, and I'm highly strategic. But I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not focused on the number. I'm focused on making content. And that's the message, that if we're focused on really creating value in the world, all of the other stuff will come naturally. You don't have to go out and separately try and get it. And, Rangan, you've done a great job of this. You've made content that's very organic to you. You've made content that's very natural to you. And I think that's what people gravitate towards you in your podcast and your books, because it's you being yourself. You're not trying to sound like someone else. You're not trying to be someone else. And if you look at the most successful creators in the world, they're all like that. They've just really shared their raw personality with others.
Rule number 3, don't be afraid to start over.
I always say it was hard to become a monk, and it was even harder to leave, because I didn't necessarily leave knowing my natural progression. I left because I realized that wasn't my path anymore. I came to the understanding and conclusion that I wasn't meant to be a monk, that didn't fit with my purpose and my calling, and externally at least. And then with the people that I lived with, they also felt that I could serve better and do more for the world if I moved on, but there was no clear pathway. And so when I moved back in with my parents, I had my 18,000 pounds of student loan debt to pay off. I moved back in with my parents, age 25, going on 26, because I didn't have any money to my name. And my resume had monk on it. So I applied to 40 corporate companies like the month I came back from living as a monk, or over a few months. And I was rejected by all 40 companies before an interview. Because surprise, surprise, no one wants someone with a monk on their resume, right? It's like, what's your transferable skills? Like staying silent or, being mindful? Like who needs that? And so genuinely, it was so hard because I was sending off applications. And if anyone knows corporate applications, these are real in-depth analysis, research on the company. And they're not just, flog your resume everywhere. And so all these companies are saying no to me, and I'm getting rejection letter after rejection letter. I'm worried that I can't depend on my parents because they're not well-to-do and well off to supply for me for the rest of my life. And now it's like all the people that doubted me, it almost feels like they were real. So when I left to become a monk, people doubted me and they thought I was crazy or brainwashed or confused. And they said things like to me, you'll never get a job. You'll never make money again. No one's ever going to marry you. And so when I came back, it was almost like all of them were right. I wasn't getting a job again. So I wasn't making any money again. Like it was all true. And so my level of self-confidence and self-esteem in 2013 when I came back was not high at all. And then finally, Accenture gave me a job. So they were like literally that 41st company that I got through to the interview, thankfully impressed whoever was there at the interview, and I got that job. And I was starting a job at age 26 that was a job for 21-year-olds. So I joined their graduate program. And so I was now 5 years older than every single person that was in my cohort.
Rule number 4, find meaning.
When you were talking about the stories we tell ourselves, I think that's so important because there's a great study that I talk about in the book by Amy Wrzniewski from the Yale University. And what they found is that they tried to find a career that they felt people may find not sharing a positive story around. And they found that hospital cleaners or hospital workers potentially have one of the toughest jobs. And Rangan, you're a doctor, and I'm sure you've seen people having to do that work, and it's a tough job. And so they asked hospital workers how they defined their jobs. And the majority of them defined it as low skilled, defined it as insignificant, defined it as just a way to pay the bills, and that their job wasn't useful or their job wasn't important, and their role was basically described like the personnel manual. But then they asked another set of hospital workers, the same people who did the same jobs, different people who did the same jobs, and they said, how do you feel about your jobs? And these people had completely different views. They felt they were healers. They felt they were caretakers. They felt that they were able to transform the energy of the actual hospital. They felt that they were carers for the people there. And what they found is that these different people who did the same job were telling themselves a different story. And therefore they saw their role as integral to the healing of the patient. And because they saw their role as integral to the healing of the patient, they found the work that they did to be extremely meaningful. And that's crazy to think about it, that different people doing the same job could say different things about the same work, They're doing the same exact thing daily, but someone thinks it's meaningless and the other thinks it's so meaningful. And this was a term by Yale that was called job crafting. The ability to assign meaning where you see it, and all of a sudden your life becomes meaningful. So if you're sitting in a job right now that you hate, or if you've got a boss that you really don't like, or if you're in a relationship that you don't want to be in, if you can't leave for whatever reason right now because of COVID or lockdown or whatever it is, financial difficulties, if you can't leave and you really want to, one of the things I recommend you do is called job crafting from the Yale School of Management. That you start asking yourself, where can I find meaning in this? What can I learn? What can I adopt? What is this trying to teach me? And that's actually where gratitude can be applied to every place, because you start going, there is some value in this. I remember when I wanted to leave my corporate job and I wanted to live my passion and do what I do today. But I'm so grateful I was at my corporate job because I learned so much there that is so useful to me now. And we find it very easy to be grateful when things are going our way, but we find it very difficult to be grateful when things are not going our way. But what we have to learn to realize, which is a really hard lesson to realize, is that things are always going your way if you're moving in the right direction. Things are not going to always look like they're going your way, and they could still be going your way. We've all seen curses turn into gifts and gifts turn into curses. But the problem is, and this is the challenge, we have a projector up here of what we want life to look like. And then we have the reality of what life actually looks like. So there's this big discrepancy. And so sometimes you're actually going in the right direction, but because it doesn't look like your picture and your image of what it should look like, you work less, you become lazier, you become complacent, you try less harder because you're like, this doesn't look like the right direction. But you'll get to where you want in life, just not in the way you imagined it, if you keep going, if you keep pushing, if you keep learning. And that's what it means to be grateful in all areas of your life, is trying to, even in the toughest moment, even in a challenging situation, not gratitude like, oh, I'm so thankful to you for causing me the pain. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is saying to yourself, where is there meaning in this? Where is the lesson in this so I don't repeat this again? If I can be grateful in this challenging situation and I can experience gratitude at all times, then I'm always going to be coming at things from a positive space and positive energy.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, shift your energy.
You talked about the fear of fear and how you had to learn to let go of your fear of fear. What does that actually mean, letting go of the fear of fear?
Yeah, so I talk about how we fear the wrong things.
What do we fear?
So most of us are fearful of how our friends are reacting, what's happening on social media, and what's the random bit of news that we heard. None of it is fact-based. That's one of the biggest issues that we have. It's worry-based. It's worry-based, and it's also imagination-based. So we become fiction writers. We've all watched too many movies. Now we start writing these beautiful movies in our head. Well, not beautiful, scary movies in our head of what may happen. So our imagination, and Seneca said it best, we suffer twice. One in reality and one in imagination, right? We suffer twice. And this is the biggest...
What actually happens to us, and then the story we continue to tell ourselves.
Totally. Now there's this incredible study in the book that I have to talk about. So they took monks and they took non-monks and they
competed against each other.
They competed against each other, literally. So they put this plate where you experience heat. And so what happens is the non-monks touch this plate. Now this plate heats up gradually, softly, and then at one point it gets really hot for 10 seconds and then it cools down. And so what happened is that when the non-monks touched it, the anxiety and pressure and stress in their brain just triggered straight away, even though it wasn't that hot.
It wasn't hot.
It was heating, but it wasn't hot to do anything major to you. But the anxiety and stress in imagination or in anticipation went through the roof in the non-monks. Now this is what's fascinating. When the monks touched it, they showed that it didn't feel anything as it rose, but as it got to its highest, they felt physical pain, but they showed no trigger of emotional pain because they did not assign any emotional element to that pain. So my point with that is, you can look at the news right now and you can get scared straight away and get in complete freeze mode, feeling stuck, paralyzed, whatever it is, because what you're now doing is you're creating a story of what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that story...
And you can cause sickness in yourself.
You can cause sickness
just by the story,
yourself.
not actually...
The reality.
The facts of the disease hitting you or something happening physically to you.
Totally. And that story, again, can be used positively. So your story may actually be true. But if it's going to be true, now you can prepare. And that shifts you away from being scared because now you're preparing.
Yes.
And so the real
you can be confident because you prepared. Exactly.
And so we should be shifting our fear energy into preparation energy. Because what fear does is it keeps you locked there, right? We just feel stuck. I'll give you an example. Like when you were preparing for big games, when you used to play in the NFL, right? And you're playing American football against some of the biggest athletes in the world. It's like you can either sit there and be scared that you're going to play this game on the weekend, or you can prepare. And your confidence is in the preparation. So when people go, how do I feel confident right now? Are you preparing?
Are you putting the reps?
Are you putting the reps?
Yeah.
Are you building your immunity? Are you taking your vitamins? Are you
drinking lots of water?
Are you drinking lots of water? Are you taking the steps that are needed to prepare for whatever's coming? You will feel more confident that way.
Rule number 6, be supportive.
I'd say that when we first met, I clearly said to Radhi who I was, what I wanted to do in the world, and what that meant for a relationship. And so when we met, I said, you know, I want to serve the world. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I know that I'm going to choose that above a lot of other things that maybe the people we're around are going to choose over their purpose. And I said, I don't know what my purpose is yet, but I know that that's my commitment and that's what I want to work on. And I'd say I've pretty much stayed the same in that I've always felt that way, and that's accelerated and escalated and elevated, but I'm pretty much the same. But I think the amazing thing is that when we first met, so many people would have ideas for Radhi. So they'd come to me and be like, you know, Radhi should start a restaurant, or Radhi should do this, or Radhi should do that. Because when we met, I was the ambitious one and driven one and focused one, and Radhi was the content one and satisfied one. And I realized that I loved her for being the way she was. And I wanted her to grow at her own pace, in her own time, if she wanted to. And then in the past couple of years, I've seen Radhi find herself and want to grow and put in the work and transform who she is. And that's wonderful to see too. And what I've realized in partnerships is that it's interesting. Often we want to be around people that are like us. But I always say to people, I would never want to date someone who's like me. In that I wouldn't want to find the female version of me and marry them. I want to find someone that is who they are and happy in their own skin. And Radhi's been happy with who she was then, and she's happy with who she is now. And that's what allows us to have that opportunity. And a lot of the credit to our relationship goes to her. When we were in New York, and my biggest priority in New York was setting her up.
Oh my gosh, she used to set me up on all these girl dates constantly.
Literally, I would try and find a list of girls in New York that I think she'd get along with. And then I'd DM them. And I'd be like, yeah, I think you and my wife would really get along. Like, you guys should hang out. Because I just felt so bad that she'd left her family because of me. And then now we were in New York. And I would be at work all day. I was at HuffPost at the time. And so I'd be at work from a 9 to 6 job and then come back in the evening. But then we might have a networking event. So much of my pressure on top of building my purpose was, is my wife happy? And I was just always conscious of that. And I just thought, if she's not happy, none of this matters. And so I was always trying to find ways of figuring that out.
Rule number 7, never stop developing yourself.
There's another famous saying, I don't know who it's by, but it's something along the lines of, there are days when nothing happened, and there are days where decades happen, or something like that. And it was one of those times where it just felt like so much just happened. It was almost like, so I'd been making content, teaching, speaking, meditating, researching, and sharing for 10 years up until this moment. So from age 18, when I met the monk, to age 28, I'd been presenting offline, teaching, making content,
social media content,
editing, social media. I'd been doing something for 10 years, And that year, that month,
even before that, all the speaking classes and performing classes and
everything. Yeah, even before. Yeah, exactly.
It all built to that moment.
All in that moment. So it was 10 years. 10 years of hard work, like kind of all fructified, not in a way that I even imagined. And it was beautiful. Like I remember just feeling like this amazing feeling of, oh, wow. And here's the important part, the entrepreneurship part. I was demonstrating my skill. It was a skill that I'd spent way over 10,000 hours developing, both meditation and teaching and coaching and content. And that's what I think is so missing today, that when we talk about passion and purpose and all of these things, and you know this, it's what are you deeply actually good at and skilled at and have an expertise in and love.
Rule number 8, understand the 3 S's.
The 3 biggest things that have changed my experience of COVID, and I've expressed this and shared this with so many companies that I've been doing private coaching with or my own clients. And these 3 things have really changed a lot of how they feel. And they're 3 really easy things you can do starting today or tomorrow. So you don't need a lot to make them happen. So they're called the 3 S's, the sights, the sense, and the sound. So what we see, what we hear, and what we smell has a huge impact on how we feel. And we actually underestimate our senses because we rely so much on our eyes. I'll give you an example. Everyone's been wearing masks recently, right? Like everyone's been wearing a mask recently. How many of you struggle to understand what people are saying because you can't read their lips anymore?
Yeah.
Right? We're so used to looking at people's lips as they talk that we know what words they're saying. Now that we can't see their lips, we realize we're actually not that great listeners. And our ears are almost asleep, so we rely so much on our eyes. So let me explain to you what you can change. Let's talk about sight, what you see. Ask yourself right now, what's the first thing you see in the morning? What's the first thing? 80% of people, they see their phone first thing in the morning and last thing in the night. After they see their partner and before they see them in the morning. 80% of us. Change it. I want you to see something in the morning that fills you with joy. It could be your favorite quote. It could be your favorite teaching. It could be a picture that your kids drew that you absolutely love. It could be a photo of your family. It could be a work of art that inspires you. I surround myself in my studio with pictures of places I've lived, people that I'm inspired by, stories that I've told, because it fills my mind with energy when I walk into this room. If I walked in and saw a blank white wall, of course I'm going to go, this is way more interesting. But my wall's more interesting than this to me because it's meaningful. And so the first thing you see in the morning, don't make it something reactive. Don't make it a message or an email. Make it something that you've chosen to inspire you. That's the first thing. The second thing is the sense in your life. Why is it that when you walk into a spa or you get a massage, you feel relaxed? It's because they have sandalwood, lavender, and eucalyptus just spraying out of diffusers and candles. And it's an instant way of feeling calm. If you just inhale on your inward breath for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 4. If you just inhale eucalyptus, lavender, sandalwood, whatever scent you like from a diffuser or a candle, you will feel a natural sense of calm in your life and feel that clarity that you need to drop out of that anxious feeling you may have. And you can have a different scent in your living room, a different scent in your bedroom, a different scent in your kitchen, one that feels right for the energy you want in that room. And the third and final one is sound. So many of us don't realize the power of sound, but whether you're listening to your favorite song or whether you listen to nature sounds, when we were monks, we would rise to nature sounds. And we found that the sound of nature is so at pace with the body and the mind. And when I lived in New York, I'd often feel exhausted mentally. And I'd wonder why. I exercise, I meditate. Why is it that I feel that way? And I realized because it's of something when I researched called cognitive load. Your brain is making sense of insignificant sounds of drilling, of construction work, of cars and taxis and horns. And so your brain doesn't have the power to deal with what's actually it's trying to focus on. So ask yourself, what are the sounds in the background of your life? Are they songs that bring you to life? Are they music that calm you down before you go to bed? Use sights, scents, and sounds to change the state and energy of any environment in your home. And if you literally walked into every room in your house and you said, what is the sight that inspires me in this room? What is the scent that calms me in this room? And what is the sound that makes me feel at ease in this room, and you sound design, sight design, and scent design each of your rooms with just a candle, a picture, and a playlist, you'll transform the way you feel starting today.
Rule number 9, learn to remain joyful.
I just find that so often in a relationship, someone else's success feels like your failure. And your success feels like someone else's failure. So we project and reflect both ways. And I think it's so important to realize that no, your success allows for you to create more success for someone else. And Radhi's success, Radhi is someone that, she's the only person in the world that I've met that doesn't react and have horrific mood swings to stuff. Like I can have a bad day and come home and Radhi will be doing the silliest dance in the kitchen and will just completely break the ice. And she finds a way to laugh at anything. And I've learned that from her, and I realized that that was a real skill. Like you can say that that's just good luck or someone who's happy-go-lucky. It's actually a skill to be joyful and find meaning and be able to diffuse a situation. And I realized sometimes I didn't have that skill because I was overworked or on the verge of burnout or tired or fatigued or whatever it may be.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is keep innovating.
No one cares. Like this is the part where redefining your brand, who you are, like your message and reconnecting with people. And it's a continuous thing. Like if I lived off of what happened in 2016, I guarantee you, no one would care what I was doing today. It's just not possible. And there's never a moment where you can ever live off just a success you had, no matter how successful it was. By the way, how many of us know artists that we call obviously one-hit wonders, where their song was our anthem for one summer, and now no one knows where they are or who they are? It's so possible. And I've seen it happen on social media to so many people. I've seen it happen in business to so many people. If you're not constantly creating and being relevant and innovating, we all know that, right? We talk
especially in the noisy world that we live in now. There's not a lot of momentum, and as soon as you take your foot off, the momentum can very easily wane.
So I spent that year just trying to pay the bills and figure that out. But at the same time, I always had my mind in two places. So one was, how do you take care of the basics? And the second one was, how do I build a real future? And that's when I started talking to more people. And I remember speaking to people about other different things I could do with my skill set. And I was very clear on that. I had a real skill set. I was like, I only want to make a business and make money from the skill set I genuinely have, which is content, wisdom, teaching, coaching. This is stuff I've done for years. I understand it. I've done one-on-one coaching. I'm qualified as a coach. These are skills I actually have. And so I started speaking to people, and people were talking about courses, and people were talking about platforms, and people were talking about programs. And I was speaking to about 5 to 10 people at the time. One of them happened to be our mutual friend, who you know, Kavit Harrier.
Yeah.
And was based in London. And Kavit and I actually bumped into each other at a vegan food festival that my wife was a part of because of something she was working on, a restaurant in London. And I was just assisting my wife. And Kavit and his wife had come up to me. His wife and him had said that they liked my videos and my work. And so we took a picture together. I started following them back on Instagram because we got along. And then I started to see what Kavit was doing. So I was speaking to a lot of people who worked in the space of understanding coaching and program. I think we spoke at that time too.
Yeah, we talked about data.
Yeah, but I was really looking for someone who was also a deep expert in what they did, but were willing to come and build something with me. Yeah. So the number one piece of advice I had at the time was, Jay, do not work with anyone. You're too important. You should do it all yourself, and you should keep all the money for yourself. And I disagreed with that because I didn't want to have to build a skill set in something that I didn't have time to at that time, to be honest. And I'd rather work with a pro. So for me and Kavit, we built this amazing partnership that launched 2018. And we became business partners and friends, and now practically like family. And we launched my Genius Coaching program, my Genius Coaching community in Jan 2018. And that became now that business and community has been active for nearly 3 years. Not only is it a phenomenal source of income and a business, it's been my most proud moment of change that we've created in the world, because we have thousands of people across the world that gain what I believe are the 3 biggest change agents of life: coaching, consistency, and community. So I coach on there every single week. It's a group coaching session. We do it every week without a doubt. So this has been 52 weeks every year. I'm live in that program every week for a 40-minute workshop. I teach a meditation every single week. And we have a community where up until the pandemic, we had meetups in over 100 cities every week, people getting together in circles of community. So not only is it such a satisfying business model, it's the most phenomenal way of service, because what we found is people watch the videos, but then where do they go? Where do they go to live?
You know what I love?
And our challenges arise by how we see ourselves. And what I believe Rangan's referring to is there's this quote that I begin my book with and that I've shared in interviews for the last few years. And it's from a writer named Charles Horton Cooley, who wrote this in the 1900s. And what he said is that, I think it's in the 1800s, at the end of the 1800s, towards the 1900s. And he said, and bear with me, and you've got to really listen closely to this. So what he said that the challenge today is, I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. Now, just let that blow your mind for a moment. I will explain it, I promise. I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am, which means we live in a perception of ourselves. So I'll break it down. If I think Rangan thinks I'm smart, I'll say I feel smart. But if I think Rangan thinks I'm not smart, then I'll say I'm not smart. And so the challenge is that we're basing how we feel about ourselves on what we think someone thinks of us. And the greatest challenge with that is, how do you have any idea if what you think someone thinks about you is even true, and whether that's even the best place to start? So that's where our identity struggles. We start pursuing things in life because we think other people value them. It's almost like, let's think of the most playground version of this. If I remember wearing high-tech shoes from BHS to the playground, right? I remember my mom, because my parents didn't buy me Nike trainers or Adidas trainers, which I always wanted. You know, we didn't come from that background. I couldn't afford them, and my parents didn't want me to have them. So I'd walk in with my high-tech trainers from BHS. They were about 10 quid or whatever they were. and you know, to me, it didn't make a difference. I didn't really know at that time whether high-tech was good or bad. They were just trainers that my parents bought me. Now, everyone, the cool kid at school, had the latest Nike trainers. All of a sudden, I start thinking that he's now surrounded by everyone. Everyone's talking about his trainers. Everyone's giving him adoration. Everyone's giving him respect. Everyone's talking about his trainers. So now I think that if I want to have that same experience and love from people, that I need to get that. Not realizing that I may be able to get deeper love from people by being kind and compassionate. That I may actually be able to build a real relationship with people if I'm loving and considerate and empathetic. And it's so crazy how your life can become about pursuing something. And that's why Jim Carrey puts it best, and I'm paraphrasing. He says, you know, everyone in the world should achieve everything they've ever wanted and accomplish everything they've ever pursued, just to realize that it's not the point. Now, that doesn't mean the monk mindset is not about not pursuing your goals. It's actually about pursuing your truest goals, your truest self, and your most authentic, aligned goals. So it's not about not having goals. It's about making sure that your goals are actually yours. This is probably one of the highlights of my evening, is taking out my 5-minute journal, the Genius Jay Shetty version, and filling out the rest of the reflections for the day. I found that this is one of the most calming and centering moments of my day, because it gives me an opportunity to appreciate what I have, to remember the incredible moments that have happened throughout my day. See, we have so many highlights in our lives that we forget, simply because we don't take a moment to allow them to go inward. For me, this is like taking a mental and emotional picture of a moment that I never want to forget. And as you can see, today I had the pleasure of interviewing Jocko Willink, who fascinated me with so many insights, Guy Raz from How I Built This, and then finally, just getting to spend so much quality time with my team. I purposely try to do this in a separate space, in an area that has that grounded energy. Remember, Time has memory and location has energy. When you do something in the same space every day, it builds a habit, it builds an energy, it builds a space. And so for me, creating that environment that helps me be reflective and introspective and grateful is really a big part of it. Now, you may have heard about something known as decision fatigue. I first came across this concept when reading The Organized Mind by Daniel Levitin. It's the idea that we make so many decisions first thing when we wake up in the morning that we run out of energy to make the most important decisions of the day. So usually when we wake up, we're trying to figure out, what do I have for breakfast? What am I going to wear today? What do I have to do today? What task do I have to finish today? And then by the time you start the tasks, you've already run out of energy. Life is challenging. It's full of ups and downs. We think, I wish things could just be still. I wish things would stop changing. I wish my problems would go away. We want a life that's steady with a path that's flat. Yet as Deborah Evans once said, life is like an EKG. Without the ups and downs, you're not living. Because this is what a flat line looks like. And this is what a lifeline looks like. When we feel those highest highs, those extreme peaks, we're ecstatic to be on the summit. Then when we're in the lowest lows, those deep values, we're ready to submit. And so we try and play it safe and avoid all risks. But when we seek security and prioritize passiveness, we don't realize that a flat lifeline means we're dead. If we're always trying to live our lives at sea level, then we'll never see what life is truly about. That what we judge as good and bad are in fact deeply connected. How could we ever experience how wonderful happiness is if we never felt sadness? How could we taste the triumph of success if we never failed? How could we know the comfort of gratitude if we never experienced loss? Somehow we got the idea that being successful and moving forward in life means we're constantly moving up. But have you ever read a book, watched a movie, or seen a case study like that? They don't exist. Every story worth telling has peaks and valleys, successes and setbacks. Our brains are wired for novelty. When something's new, whether it's a fantastic surprise or a huge challenge, our brains light up. We thrive on learning and our opportunities to grow. Yet our brains also easily become accustomed to patterns, making it harder for us to change. Dramatic disruptions help us break these patterns and invite us to see and experience the world in a whole new way. And as it turns out, we're designed for change, all the way down to our cells. Your body is constantly being reinvented, replacing most of itself every 7 to 15 years, even down to our bones. The universe is constantly shifting, and we are part of that. When we try and resist change, it goes against our very nature. In the journey of life, we experience pleasure and pain. There'll be sunshine and rain, there'll be loss and gain, but we must learn to keep moving forward again and again. So if you opened your eyes this morning, if you were healthy enough to move about, to maybe get yourself some food, if you were able to go to a refrigerator and find that it was full and stocked, if you were able to put on some clothes, and if you had a roof over your head, just remember how grateful you can be for all those things we consider to be basic, but for others, they don't even have access to. We can't stop life's ups and downs, but we can change how we experience them. We can learn to go with life's flow. Because as Helen Keller once said, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all.
What's one thing that we can do for more wealth, so more abundance in all the areas of our life?
So there's a beautiful, beautiful Sanskrit word named mudita. And mudita means to feel joy in others' success. So it's been described that we know how to feel pain when other people feel pain. That's what we call empathy or compassion. But we don't know how to feel joy when other people feel joy. And in Think Like a Monk, I talk about this because I talk about how there are an infinite number of seats in the theater of happiness. But because we live in a finite world, we've believed that there are only X number of tickets in that concert. There are only X number of seats, limited number of seats in that sports game. There are only this many people that have the opportunity to be abundant, wealthy, and successful. And as soon as you put a limit in your mind and believe that there are only a finite number of seats, you can't enjoy the show. And so mudita is the perspective of saying, if I can feel joy for someone else's success and realize that takes nothing away from me, because there's infinite number of seats. And actually, forget infinite number of seats. There is a seat with your name on it. There are tickets with your name on it in the theater of happiness, sitting there waiting for you. But because you want someone else's seat so bad, because you're chasing someone else's seat so bad, and they're already sitting on it, your seat's lying there empty. And so if you just claim your seat, and so if we can experience other people's joy, if we can look to celebrate other people's successes and joys, then that will open up abundance in our life. A, because we're now part of their success. Have you ever noticed how when you celebrate someone else's success, you're a part of their success? So you're doing that. Second, you get to learn from their journey. See, when you're envious or you compare, you don't get to learn. So you've lost everything. Whereas when you celebrate someone, you get to go, oh, well, what did they do right? Notice how if you're criticizing someone who's won or you're negative towards them, you go, oh, well, I've got nothing to learn from them. It was easy from them. Who cares about them? But if you go, wait a minute, they got something right. What did they do? You can learn from them. So the first thing is you're a part of their success. The second thing is you learn from them or their journey. And the third thing is you realize that there's a seat with your name on it. And if you can do that, abundance and wealth and everything will come. And you start to follow your own path. As the Gita says, which I quote in the book, it's better to follow your own path imperfectly than to try to pursue someone else's path perfectly. And so allowing yourself to just chase that seat that has your name on it is far better than trying to get in someone else's seat. Usually during that quality time with Radhi, I'm not on my phone, I'm not on my devices, but it's at this point that I finally turn my phone onto airplane mode. I find that this habit is a game changer and a lifesaver at the end of the day because it can be so addictive to just mindlessly scroll through Instagram or TikTok just before you're about to go to bed and literally fill your mind up with so much stimulation that it can be really difficult to switch off. I found that letting go of your phone an hour before you go to bed allows you to have so much more stillness and calm internally and externally. I really believe that if you can master this one habit of not looking at your phone before you go to bed, it will truly change how you feel the next morning. They found that 77% of those who struggle financially play the lottery, right? They play the game, they gamble. 77% of people who are struggling financially gamble. The advice is don't gamble. If you're gambling, right, and you're not winning a lot, maybe you're an online poker player, right? Maybe you're playing for entertainment, that's different, but still be careful. But maybe you're someone who's hoping that you're gonna get a quick rich scheme. A lot of these quick rich schemes online aren't real, right? And gambling is just the more obvious version of that, where it's all gamified, it feels exciting. But they found that 77% of people that are struggling financially gamble, right? So the advice was don't gamble, don't focus in on that. I think we've come to a place where we feel that freedom and the freedom of unlimited choice is power. And we've all realized, and the science and the studies all show this, that the more choice we have, the worse mistakes we make. And we make poorer decisions based on this complete limitless choice. And I found that actually when you stripped away some of that choice, your ability to make decisions grew.
My meditation teacher said to me, even in a shallow dive, you get wet, so still do it.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. The first step is learning to appreciate where you are. Because if we can't appreciate where we are, we will never appreciate where we get to. And I often say to people, like, you're exactly where you need to be. And we're scared of accepting that because we're like, well, I don't like being here, but that's because we don't see it as part of our story. And then the third part of it truly is that I've seen the most powerful dreams be linked to service and impact. And so when your dream expands into having a service element, you get the opportunity to work harder than you've ever dreamed of. You're able to learn things that you never believed you could because we're so phenomenal at extending ourselves beyond what we know for people that we love and people we want to serve. We will continue to create the life that we currently have with the current set of thoughts, wisdom, beliefs, and ideas that we have. And if we're happy on that path, if you could fast forward your life in 10, 20, 30 years' time, and you'd be satisfied with getting the life that you have right now, then that's great. But if, like the majority of people that I know and that I speak to and that I connect with online, the majority of us would look and go, no, I really want to change life. I want to be with my kids, but I want to change how I am with them. I want to be at work, but I want to be more present at work. I want to improve the quality of my life. Then I'd say that it's so important that we learn and open up our minds to alternative thoughts. I'll give you an example. There was this great study that MIT did on people's minds' openness and their ability to be creative and innovative. And they looked at two types of people. One person was surrounded by people who all knew the same people, right? Kind of like our normal lives. And the other person was surrounded by lots of people who didn't know each other. And they did the study around who is more creative, more innovative, and has a bigger impact in the workplace, in their professional life, and then a little bit into their personal life as well. And what they found was that those people who knew each other, who knew them back, lived in what was known as echo chambers. They were rarely exposed to ideas that improved their way of living or their professional performance. But people who were exposed to ideas that had no connection with other people in their life were able to be more creative, have better ideas, have more purpose, have more meaning in life. So often we've become closed in our little spaces around what we hear, what we know about, and we're not exposed to this new sense of ideas. And that's what I would encourage, is just approach it with a tiny bit of curiosity. That's all you need.
One of the reasons why I love this one is everyone from Lewis Hamilton through to David Beckham has used visualization.
Yes.
So Lewis Hamilton would visualize the racetrack before actually driving in a Formula One race. David Beckham would visualize a free kick before taking a shot at a World Cup tournament. Mm-hmm. And this visualization allows you to deal with the pressure and stress before the actual activity.
Ooh.
What it does is it allows you to fast forward. It's almost like time dilation. You're fast forwarding an experience and bringing it to the present where you're not experiencing that pressure and stress.
Right.
So that you can engage with it better. So if you're scared, for example, if you've got a really big meeting or a big pitch coming up, if you live that meeting and visualize that meeting now and visualize yourself walking in with confidence, visualize yourself not falling over on the stage,
right.
Visualize yourself starting that first word that you say with composure, with eloquence, with effectiveness, then when you actually walk into that space tomorrow, you're going to carry that energy with you. And this is one of the biggest mistakes we make, that we stress before,
right,
but we don't prepare before. And so visualizing what's about to come
reduces the
stress because it lets you deal with it now, and it lets you plant thoughts and energy into the future. And that's really what a visualization is doing.
Right.
It's letting you plant the energy of feeling composed and relaxed now into that feeling. So what I do before I'm about to go on stage, I always visualize myself walking on the stage. And I do that to make myself feel comfortable and reminding myself I'm not going to trip on stage, which we all fear as speakers. And it allows me to feel confident before I walk on. So visualizing any experience, a meeting, a lecture, an exam, whatever it may be, a test, whatever it is you're doing.
And it's like mental rehearsal.
Totally. That's all it is.
The mind doesn't know the difference between something you vividly imagine and something that's real. And most people could use that superpower, if you will, for something negative, like visualizing something they fear was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then they're actually practicing that in advance also.
Totally. Yeah. And that's what we mostly do. We mostly mentally rehearse what could go wrong.
Right.
So we mentally rehearse tripping up on going on.
Why would you do that?
We do that because we think dwelling on our stress and pressure helps deal with it.
Right.
But it doesn't. Dwelling on anything increases it.
Yes.
So the only way to deal with it is to reprogram ourselves. You've just been speaking about this. To reprogram ourselves to deal with it how we want, in the aspirational sense. You can't plan your life 30 years ahead. You don't need to. And I think that's a pressure that we put on ourselves, like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I going to be doing when I'm 50? And it's like, well, actually, hopefully you'll be doing something that surprises you.
And why not just let your life surprise you constantly? Why make it out like life is this like linear, perfect journey where like at 30, I'm gonna do this, and at 40, I'm gonna do this, and at 50, and it's like, well, life probably is not gonna go like that. And that picture that you have rolling, because it won't fit in with what you're experiencing, that gap is the pressure that you feel in your life. The reason I'm saying don't put purpose on a pedestal is because then purpose becomes this heavy weight that you're carrying, and you're now like judging yourself that you don't know it. And if you instead make your goal to learn about purpose, learn about meaning, explore yourself, experiment, grow, now it becomes like, oh, I'm just experimenting, I'm just learning about myself. If you don't really have an interest, it's going to be really hard. And then when it comes to our soft skills, we go, oh, I'm a good communicator, I'm just gonna stick to that, forget vulnerability. Or I'm a really good talker, forget listening. And that kind of all comes in together. And I think the point is that if we're always learning and figuring out a way to serve in whatever situation we're in, that's the best route for success, because that's something that no one can take away from you. We like stress out about not being motivated. We stress out about not finding purpose. But guess what? Just like you got to eat and shower, you have to find purpose in every day. I think that we have to get as intimate with our dark side as possible. And I feel like when you don't get that intimacy, you don't really understand it. I look back and I think, why did I do that? And it's just always been my desire to experiment, always been my desire to learn, always been my desire to be curious and find out more about myself. The first is to approach any situation from compassion and empathy. The other thing is to recognize that sometimes when we go through pain, it makes us pay attention. Like when we go through pain, it makes us pay attention. When things are going great, we often get complacent. We stop worrying, we get lazy, we don't worry about anything, we're just relaxing. And as soon as you feel pain, pain is a way of your body, of society, of the economy to force you to pay attention. So if you're being lazy and not eating right, your body reacts badly to tell you to stop doing that. So any pain that happens in your life, first of all, is saving you from more pain. And so for me, that's the shift that we have to go through. And that all comes from us deeply looking into our minds and going, where are these blocks turning up from? Where are they coming from? What are their roots? And then how can I replace them with the right conversation, the right dialogue internally? When it comes to your hard skills, focus on your strengths. When it comes to your soft skills, focus on your weaknesses. If you do those two things, your life will change dramatically. Because if you're good at something, you become exceptional at it. In the Manusmriti, which I talk about in Think Like a Monk, it's a monk book. And in the verse, it says, when you protect your purpose protects you. Now, I want to unpack that. What I mean by that is, your purpose is like a rare jewel and a rare gemstone. And imagine you were walking around with the most expensive diamond or jewel in the world. How would you protect it?
You want to just like
wave
it out, yeah.
Yeah, you want to just wear it on your chest.
Like this.
Like a baby.
Holding it.
Yeah.
Putting a pillow around it, a blanket, you'd protect it.
You'd protect it. And so your purpose is like that. And guess what? Wow. People are going to tell you every day that jewel is not worth anything. They're going to tell you that jewel is actually valueless. It doesn't have any impact on your life. They're going to try and take away that value. They're going to tell you that there's another jewel out there that you need to have more value. And what ends up happening is I love the word, look at the wording, protect your purpose. You have to protect it. So what happens is your success grows, you get more opportunities, more ideas, more things coming your way. Temptations. But they can all take you away from your purpose. Yeah. Distractions. And to me, I'm repeating this for myself because I'm like, I just want to stick to what I was born to do. And I'm so grateful that I get to do it. I'm so happy I get to do it. And I want to keep protecting it. I don't want to get lost in the waves. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't want to just get chucked in the waves of the ocean and just get lost and just not know where you're going. So for me, when you protect your purpose protects you.
So that's been your biggest lesson?
That's my biggest lesson.
Why? Do you feel like your purpose has been maybe distracted in some ways?
I don't think it has. But I'm saying it so it doesn't. Like
You're reminding yourself.
Yeah, I'm reminding myself. Like I'm preaching to myself right now. It's
especially like, being in Hollywood and the temptation of all these opportunities out here.
Totally, and I think for me it's a bigger lesson also because it gives me more faith. So I always encourage, and this is actually this is why it's my biggest lesson. I encourage so many people that I coach, so many people that I mentor, obviously everyone in my community and audience and everything, to go and follow that. Go and live that purpose.
And I see time and time again that when I see people trying to live their purpose, they are protected, that things work. When you're playing in your dharma and your purpose, things work, things move, you feel momentum. They happen. And I'm not saying they happen without effort, but they happen, they move. Whereas when you're not, you just constantly feel like you're grinding up against, a wall. I think of inspiration like eating food. Every day you feel hungry and you don't panic when you get hungry. You just know you need to find food and eat. But you don't go, oh no, why do I feel hungry today? I ate so much yesterday and I ate so much last week. I shouldn't be hungry today. Like, why do I feel hungry today? That's not your panic. Your panic is, why didn't I plan for my meal, right? Like, that's the panic. But you're not panicking going, oh my gosh, why am I hungry? I shouldn't be hungry. So it's really strange when we don't feel inspired or motivated, we panic. We go, oh no, why don't I feel inspired? I'm a negative person. Like, I'm not motivated. Like, what's wrong with me? Well, that's because we haven't fed ourselves. And so we have to find something that inspires us daily. You may say, it's a quote that you see that you write, your favorite quote, and you put it on a Post-it note next to your bed when you wake up in the morning. It may be a paragraph from a book. It may be listening to this podcast. Two of my best habits for inspiration were these two that I want to share with you, Melissa. One of them was around 7 years ago when I left monk life. Every day, I would listen to Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech every single day, to the point where I almost knew it off by heart. And I cannot tell you how much that rewired the voice in my head and how much of that speech has inspired every step and decision I've made today. I had the fortune the other day of sitting down with Matthew McConaughey on my podcast. I was interviewing him for it. I think the episode comes out next Monday. And I was telling him that at one point in my life, in about 2014, 2015, I listened to his Oscars acceptance speech, and it's about 5 minutes, and I would listen to it every single day for 30 days. And it was so profound, listening to the same thing again and again and again to rewire my mind. So inspiration can come in all ways, whether you're an auditory learner or a kinesthetic learner or a visual learner. The point is you have to feed yourself every day. Whenever you give out any energy, love, hate, anger, kindness, you will always get it back, one way or another. Love is like a circle. Whatever love you give out, it always comes back to you. I was just showing Sally a Facebook memory backstage 7 years ago. I love Facebook reminders.
Look at this.
It showed me that I was speaking to this little group of students about 7 mistakes people make in their 20s. And it was a memory of a talk that I was giving 6 and 7 years ago. I released my first video 5 years ago. So 6 and 7 years ago, most people didn't know who I was and what I was doing. I had an event in London called Conscious Living. So it was on a Friday night in the city, and 5 to 10 people would show up every week. That's it, 5 to 10 people. And I remember loving it, and I remember feeling so happy and so grateful that 5 to 10 people showed up. And I feel the same way about the first 5 to 10 people that followed me and commented on my videos. And I feel the same way about the first 5 to 10 people when I finally got to meet them. And I found that if you can love one person, if you can deeply feel grateful for one person, then thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions will come from that. But if you struggle to be present and connected to that one person, it's really hard to be trusted by the universe with more. What is it that success looks like for you? And don't make it about a number. Don't make it about a count of views. Don't make it about a follower. Don't make it about a size of home, because those things are great for success, but they're not great for happiness. My measure of success is, can I wake up and do something I love every day? Harvard did a research study on 3,000 leaders, managers, individuals working inside organizations, and they looked at the top performing ones and they wondered and asked, what was the number one skill they had? And it came down to this one word: associating. The ability to connect dots where people usually see differences. The ability to find parallels and similarities and synergies where other people only see
divide and disconnection. We live in these echo chambers inside our organizations. We get lost around the same group of 3 to 4 people. We get lost in the same mini groups of people, and we don't expand our minds beyond that. People with broader networks, people who had people in their lives that were very different from the other people, were actually able to provide more creative, more productive, more effective ideas and solutions in the company, because they were able to look at things from multiple angles, different perspectives. How can we start to recognize that when we win and someone else wins, when we win together, when we're able to help and serve and support each other together, that so much more can happen?
I, from a very young age, just felt there was this strong inner voice. And I believe everyone has it. This isn't me being religious or spiritual or woo-woo. This is me saying that there is a voice that we all hear in our minds, in our hearts, in our heads, wherever you want to say it is, it's there. And the challenge that happens is in our early years, you're told to tell it to be quiet. So every time that voice says, well, maybe, no, just do what they're saying, do what they're told, get on that conveyor belt, get on that assembly line, stick that barcode on your back, become a machine, go be a robot. And it's almost programmed. And so that voice that is not machine-like, that voice is the human inside of us, is being trained to be a machine. And so we start treating ourselves like machines. And machines, you just program them and then press enter and then it gives you what it wants. But we don't function that way. We're a conversation in the universe. We're not a program. And so if you're a conversation and you're an interaction, you're dynamic, that inner voice becomes so squashed that now by the time we're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever age you are, you can't hear it anymore. So you say, oh, that's some spiritual mumbo jumbo stuff because I don't hear that voice.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Lewis Howes, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
And knowing that if I keep focusing on my heart, if I keep focusing on giving, if I keep focusing on growing, if I keep focusing on loving people and loving myself, then I'm going to reject and attract the right things in my life.